What happens when one of music's smoothest crooners loses his cool on live television? When Michael Buble sat down for what was supposed to be a friendly chat with Kelly Clarkson. Nobody expected the conversation to spiral into one of the most uncomfortable moments in daytime TV history. The tension that erupted between these two powerhouse vocalists left audiences stunned and questioning everything they thought they knew about their favorite stars. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment telling me what you think really triggered this explosive encounter. The Kelly Clarkson Show was running its usual format, the studio filled with the warm afternoon light that made every guest look like they were sitting in a friend's living room. Kelly, wearing her signature bright smile and a flowing emerald dress, introduced her next guest with her typical enthusiasm. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the man who makes Christmas music sound good all year round. The incredibly talented Michael Buble, Kelly announced, her voice carrying that genuine warmth that had made her show so beloved. Michael walked onto the set with his characteristic swagger, that million-dollar smile lighting up his face as he waved to the audience. He was dressed impeccably in a navy blue suit that complemented his piercing eyes, his hair perfectly styled. In that effortless way, that probably took an hour to achieve. The audience erupted in applause, several women in the front row practically swooning as he blew kisses in their direction. Thank you so much, Michael said, settling into the plush chair across from Kelly. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, Kelly. You know I've been watching your show, and I have to say, you've really found your groove in this hosting thing. Kelly beamed at the compliment, tucking a strand of her blonde hair behind her ear. Oh, stop it. You're making me blush. Coming from someone with your level of talent, that means everything. I mean, let's be honest, you're the king of smooth. When people think of class and sophistication in music, they think Michael Buble. Well, I appreciate that, I really do, Michael replied, his Canadian accent adding to his charm. But you know what I think is really impressive? What you've done with your career. American Idol winner, multiple Grammy winner, now a successful talk show host. That's what I call versatility. The conversation was flowing exactly as these celebrity interviews usually did. All compliments and surface-level banter. Kelly leaned forward slightly, her expression shifting to something more serious but still maintaining that talk show host professionalism. Speaking of versatility, I wanted to talk to you about something that's been on my mind lately, Kelly said, her tone becoming more measured. As artists, we both know how important it is to stay true to ourselves, right? To not let the industry or outside pressures change who we are at our core. Michael nodded, though something in his expression suggested he wasn't quite sure where this was heading. Absolutely. Authenticity is everything in this business. When you lose that, you lose your connection with your audience. Exactly, Kelly continued, her smile becoming slightly more strained. So I'm curious about your perspective on artists who present themselves as one thing publicly but might be different behind the scenes. You know, the whole image versus reality thing. The shift in Michael's demeanor was subtle but noticeable. His smile faltered for just a moment and he adjusted his position in the chair. I'm sorry, Kelly, I'm not sure I follow. Are you asking about someone specific, or is this more of a general industry question? Kelly's laugh was a little too bright, a little too forced. Oh, just in general. You know how it is. Sometimes we hear stories about artists who are beloved by their fans, but maybe not so beloved by the people who work with them. I think it's important to talk about these things openly, don't you? The studio audience was beginning to sense something was off. The usual comfortable energy of the show was becoming tense, and several people in the front row were exchanging confused glances. Michael's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but his media training kicked in. Well, I think every artist has good days and bad days, Michael said carefully. We're all human. We all have our moments, but I've always believed that how you treat people, especially when the cameras aren't rolling, that's what really defines your character. That's such a good point, Kelly said, her voice taking on an edge that wasn't there before. Character is so important. I mean, there's nothing worse than someone who puts on this perfect public persona but then treats their team, their crew, their fellow artists with disrespect. That kind of behavior is just unacceptable. Don't you think? Michael's composure was beginning to crack. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes narrowing slightly as he studied Kelly's face. Kelly, I have to ask, is there something specific you want to discuss here? Because it feels like you're trying to make some kind of point, and I'm not sure what it is. The audience was now completely silent. The usual murmur of conversation and shifting in seats had stopped entirely. Even the camera operators seemed to sense that something significant was happening, and the director was probably having a panic attack in the control room. Kelly's mask of professional courtesy was starting to slip. I just think it's important for our viewers to understand that their favorite artists are real people with real flaws. And sometimes those flaws include treating people poorly, being demanding, having unrealistic expectations, making life difficult for everyone around them. Are you talking about me specifically? Michael asked, his voice becoming harder, more direct. The smooth crooner charm was evaporating, replaced by something much more confrontational. I'm talking about accountability, Kelly shot back, her own voice rising slightly. I'm talking about the fact that some artists think their talent gives them a pass to be difficult, to be demanding, to treat people like they're beneath them. Michael stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backwards slightly. Okay, I think I see what's happening here. You've obviously heard some gossip, some rumors, and you've decided to ambush me on your show instead of having a professional conversation about it privately. Ambush. Kelly laughed, but there was no humor in it. Michael, this is called journalism. This is called asking the tough questions instead of just throwing softballs and letting celebrities promote their latest projects without any real scrutiny. This is called unprofessional, Michael retorted, his voice now carrying a sharp edge that his fans had never heard before. You invite me onto your show under the pretense of a friendly interview, and then you start making veiled accusations about my character. The tension in the studio was palpable now. Several audience members were pulling out their phones, despite the usual restrictions against recording during tapings. The crew was frozen, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut to commercial. Kelly stood up as well, matching Michael's confrontational stance. Her perfectly styled hair was starting to look a bit disheveled as she ran her fingers through it, a nervous habit that betrayed her growing agitation. You know what, Michael, let's drop the pretense, Kelly said, her voice taking on a steel that surprised even her regular viewers. I've talked to people who've worked with you, multiple people, and the stories I've heard about how you treat backup singers, how you talk to sound engineers, how you behave when things don't go exactly your way. It's not pretty. Michael's face flushed, his carefully maintained composure completely shattered. Now, stories. From who? Some disgruntled employee who didn't like being told to do their job properly. You're going to base your entire assessment of my character on gossip and hearsay. I'm basing it on patterns, Kelly fired back, her own professional facade crumbling. When multiple people tell the same story about someone, when there's a consistent pattern of behavior, that's not gossip, that's evidence. Evidence of what exactly? Michael demanded, his voice rising to match hers. That I have high standards. That I expect excellence from the people I work with. That I take my music seriously. There's a difference between having high standards and being a nightmare to work with, Kelly shot back. There's a difference between expecting excellence and screaming at a 19-year-old backup singer because she missed a note during rehearsal. The audience gasped collectively. This was clearly more specific than anyone had expected, and Michael's reaction confirmed that Kelly had hit a nerve. His jaw clenched, and for a moment, it looked like he might actually walk off the set. You don't know what you're talking about, Michael said, his voice dangerously low. You weren't there. You don't know the context. You don't know the pressure. You don't know anything except what some bitter ex-employee told you. I know enough, Kelly replied, crossing her arms defensively. I know that several people have told me they would never work with you again. I know that there are stories about you throwing tantrums when the catering wasn't exactly what you ordered. I know that you've made grown men cry because they didn't set up your microphone stand to your exact specifications. Michael laughed, but it was a harsh, bitter sound. Oh, this is rich. This is coming from someone who had a complete meltdown during their own talk show taping last month. You want to talk about throwing tantrums? What about when you screamed at your entire production team because they didn't have the right brand of sparkling water in your dressing room? Now it was Kelly's turn to look shocked. The color drained from her face as she realized Michael had just aired her own dirty laundry on live television. That's completely different, Kelly stammered, but her voice lacked conviction. That was a private moment, and it was blown out of proportion. Private moment. Michael scoffed. Just like my supposed screaming at backup singers was a private moment. Funny how privacy only matters when it's your reputation on the line. The studio was dead silent now, the audience watching this train wreck unfold with a mixture of horror and fascination. Several people in the front row were openly recording with their phones, and the show's producers were frantically trying to figure out how to handle this unprecedented situation. Kelly's voice became sharper, more defensive. You know what the difference is, Michael? I own my mistakes. I don't hide behind this perfect public image while treating people terribly behind the scenes. At least I'm honest about my flaws. Honest? Michael laughed again, the sound even more bitter than before. You're honest. You built your entire career on being America's sweetheart, the relatable girl next door who overcame adversity. But the truth is, you're just as much of a diva as anyone else in this business, you just hide it better. That's not true, Kelly protested, but her voice was shaking now. I've never pretended to be perfect. I've always been open about my struggles, my mistakes. Have you been open about how you treat your staff? Michael asked, his tone becoming more aggressive. Have you been open about the fact that you go through assistance faster than most people go through coffee? Have you been open about the fact that half your crew calls you the ice queen behind your back? Kelly's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She clearly hadn't expected Michael to come back at her with such specific accusations. and the fact that some of them appeared to be hitting close to home was written all over her face. "You're deflecting," she finally managed to say, though her voice was much quieter now. "This isn't about me. This is about your behavior, your treatment of people who work for you. No, this is about you ambushing me on your show," Michael said, his voice becoming more controlled but no less angry. "This is about you trying to destroy my reputation based on rumors and gossip. This is about you using your platform to attack someone instead of having a professional conversation." "I'm not trying to destroy anything," Kelly protested, but even she seemed to realize how weak that sounded. "I'm trying to have an honest conversation about accountability in the music industry." "Bullshit," Michael said, the profanity causing several audience members to gasp. "You're trying to create drama for your show. You're trying to generate buzz and controversy because your ratings have been slipping." Kelly's face went red, and for a moment, it looked like she might actually slap him. "How dare you suggest that I would destroy someone's reputation for ratings? How dare you question my integrity as a journalist?" "Journalist?" Michael laughed harshly. "You're a talk show host who sings occasionally. Don't confuse entertainment with journalism. And you're a lounge singer who got lucky," Kelly shot back, her voice dripping with venom. "Don't confuse nostalgia with talent." The insult hit Michael like a physical blow. His face went pale, then red, then pale again. For someone who had built his entire career on his vocal ability and musical sophistication, being called a lounge singer was probably the worst insult Kelly could have thrown at him. "You know what?" Michael said, his voice now deadly calm. "I think we're done here. This conversation has devolved into something that's beneath both of us, and frankly, I don't think your audience deserves to watch two professionals act like children." He started to remove his microphone, but Kelly wasn't finished. "Running away, Michael, that's your solution when things get uncomfortable. Just leave instead of addressing the issues." Michael stopped, his hand frozen on his lapel microphone. He turned back to Kelly with a look that could have frozen hell itself. "You want to talk about running away?" Michael said, his voice now carrying a dangerous edge that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Let's talk about how you ran away from your marriage when things got tough. Let's talk about how you ran away from your record label when they wouldn't let you make exactly the music you wanted. Let's talk about how you've been running away from taking responsibility for your own behavior for years." Kelly's face went completely white, and for a moment, she looked like she might actually faint. The mention of her personal life, her divorce, her professional struggles, had clearly crossed a line that neither of them had expected to reach. "That's enough," Kelly said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You've gone too far, have I?" Michael asked, his tone becoming almost conversational, which somehow made it even more menacing. "Because I think what's too far is inviting someone onto your show under false pretenses and then trying to humiliate them on live television. I think what's too far is making accusations about someone's character without giving them a chance to defend themselves properly." The studio was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Even the camera operators seemed to be holding their breath, uncertain whether they should keep rolling or cut away from this disaster. Kelly seemed to gather herself, straightening her shoulders, and trying to regain some semblance of professional composure. "You know what, Michael, you're right, this has gone too far. Maybe we should take a break and come back to this conversation when we can both approach it more professionally." "No," Michael said firmly, his voice cutting through the studio like a knife. "There's not going to be a break. There's not going to be a second chance at this conversation. What there's going to be is me walking out of here right now, and you explaining to your audience why you thought it was appropriate to ambush a guest with unsubstantiated accusations." "They're not unsubstantiated," Kelly protested, but her voice lacked the fire it had carried just moments before. "I have sources, I have witnesses." "Sources who won't go on the record," Michael shot back. "Witnesses who won't show their faces. Anonymous complaints from people who might have their own agendas. That's not journalism, Kelly, that's a hit job." Kelly's producer was now visible at the edge of the set, frantically gesturing and trying to get her attention, but she was too focused on Michael to notice. The audience was completely transfixed, watching this train wreck unfold with the kind of horrified fascination usually reserved for natural disasters. "You know what I think this is really about?" Michael continued, his voice becoming more confident as he seemed to find his footing in this bizarre situation. "I think this is about the fact that you're jealous. You're jealous that I've managed to maintain my reputation, my class, my dignity throughout my career, while you've had to deal with public divorces, weight struggles, professional setbacks." "That's not true," Kelly said, but her voice was shaking now, and tears were beginning to form in her eyes. "This has nothing to do with jealousy. This has to do with holding people accountable for their actions." "Accountable for what exactly?" Michael demanded. "For being successful. For having standards. For expecting the people I work with to be professional. Because if that's what you're calling abusive behavior, then I think you need to reevaluate your definition of abuse." Kelly wiped at her eyes, smearing her makeup slightly. "It's not about success, Michael. It's about how you treat people. It's about the fact that you think your talent gives you the right to be cruel. And it's about the fact that you think your platform gives you the right to destroy someone's reputation without due process. Michael countered, it's about the fact that you've turned your talk show into a kangaroo court where you get to play judge, jury, and executioner. The confrontation had reached a fever pitch, and both celebrities were now standing face to face, their voices raised, their professional facades completely shattered. The audience was silent, watching this unprecedented breakdown of two beloved entertainers. You know what? Kelly said, her voice now hoarse from the emotional strain. Maybe you're right. Maybe I shouldn't have brought this up on the show. Maybe I should have handled this differently. Michael seemed surprised by her admission, his aggressive posture softening slightly. I appreciate you saying that, Kelly. I really do. But the damage is done now. This conversation is going to be all over the internet in an hour. My reputation is going to be questioned. My character is going to be debated. All because you decided to air unproven accusations on live television. I'm sorry, Kelly said, and for the first time since this whole confrontation began, she sounded genuinely contrite. I really am. I thought I was doing the right thing, bringing these issues to light, but maybe I was wrong about the method. Maybe you were wrong about more than just the method, Michael said, his voice still hard but not as aggressive as before. Maybe you were wrong about the accusations themselves. Maybe you should have done more research, talked to more people, gotten the full story before deciding to crucify someone on national television. Kelly nodded, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. You're right. I should have been more careful. I should have been more professional. I let my emotions get the better of me, and I'm sorry. Michael looked at her for a long moment, and something in his expression softened. Look, Kelly, we're both passionate people. We both care about our careers, our reputations, our art. Maybe we both said things today that we wish we could take back. I know I did, Kelly said, her voice barely audible. I'm so sorry, Michael. I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you or damage your reputation, and I never meant to bring up your personal life, Michael replied. That was out of line, and I apologize for that. Your marriage, your personal struggles, that's not fair game, and I shouldn't have gone there. The studio was still completely silent, but the energy had shifted from hostile to something more like tragic. Two professionals who had let their emotions get the better of them were now trying to find their way back to some semblance of dignity. I think, Michael said slowly, that we both need to take a step back and think about what happened here today. This isn't who either of us wants to be. This isn't the kind of conversation that serves anyone. Kelly nodded, wiping her eyes again. You're absolutely right. I think we should end this here. I owe you an apology, and I owe my audience an apology for letting this get so out of hand. Michael extended his hand to her, and after a moment's hesitation, she took it. No hard feelings, Kelly. We're both human. We both made mistakes. Let's leave it at that. As they shook hands, the audience finally began to stir, some people applauding uncertainly, others still too shocked to react. The camera operators were still rolling, capturing every moment of this unprecedented television event. Ladies and gentlemen, Kelly said, turning to address her audience directly. I want to apologize for what you've witnessed here today. This was not the kind of conversation I intended to have, and it certainly wasn't the kind of professional discourse that you deserve from this show. Michael nodded, his composure finally returning. I want to apologize as well. Regardless of what prompted this conversation, the way it devolved into personal attacks was inappropriate and unprofessional. The show's producer was now on the set, clearly relieved that the situation seemed to be de-escalating, but the damage was done, and everyone in that studio knew that this conversation would be replayed and analyzed for weeks to come. What started as a routine celebrity interview had become one of the most explosive confrontations in daytime television history. Two beloved entertainers had revealed sides of themselves that their fans had never seen before, and the entertainment world would never look at either of them quite the same way again. The aftermath of this confrontation would ripple through the industry for months, raising questions about accountability, professionalism, and the price of fame. It serves as a reminder that even our most polished celebrities are human beings with flaws, emotions, and breaking points. What do you think really triggered this explosive encounter? Was Kelly justified in her approach, or did she cross a line? Subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments below. What do you think about this unprecedented moment in television history?